Hello, it's Toaster Party, and today I'm going to talk about what my picks are for the 5 best Phyrexia All-Be-One cards for Pauper. So there's some pretty interesting cards in this set, but without further ado, let's start talking about them. Starting things off with number 5, Incisor Glider. For 1 generic and a white, you get an artifact creature Phyrexian construct with flying. That says whenever Incisor Glider attacks, if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. This card is also a 1/3. So if you can get an opponent to 3 poison counters, then this card suddenly becomes an incredible way to close out a game, especially if you can get it down in multiples. The problem is that the kind of decks that want this, that being going wide strategies, do not really have the tools at the moment for getting an opponent to 3 poison counters. There is a chance that in the few upcoming sets that are on Phyrexia that we might get more support for this archetype, but till then I feel it's appropriate to just leave it at number 5. Now let's move on to number 4, Malcator's Watcher. For 1 generic and a blue, you get an artifact creature Phyrexian Drone with flying and vigilance, that whenever this card dies, you draw a card. It's also a 1/1. So basically, it's an artifact creature that if it dies, it replaces itself. There are a lot of cards in this format that either care about sacrificing artifacts or creatures, and this is just another good artifact to sack. Let's move on now to number 3, Annihilating Glare. For 1 black mana, you get a sorcery that says as an additional cost to cast a spell, pay 4 generic mana, or sack an artifact or creature. You can then destroy a target creature or planeswalker. We've seen similar cards to this see play in the past, and like with those cards, the interesting part of this card is the additional cost to cast, that being to sack an artifact or a creature. This is possibly good in a version of Affinity or some other list that want to see its artifacts or creatures sacrificed. Specifically, this is probably interesting along cards like Ichor Wellspring. Now let's move on to number 2, Planar Disruption. For 1 generic and a white, you get an enchantment aura that enchants an artifact, creature, or planeswalker. Enchanted permanent cannot attack or block, and its activated abilities cannot be activated. So this is a pacifism that also takes away the activated abilities of a card, and it can also be used to target artifacts. That includes artifacts lands, meaning that you can shut them off. This is already on rate for removal in white, and the flexibility of this card just makes it a whole lot better. And while it probably doesn't completely usurp Journey to Nowhere as the white removal spell of choice, there's a fairly good argument for wanting to play a few copies alongside that card. But let's move on now to number 1, Blazing Crescendo. So for 1 generic and a red, you get an instant that says target creature gets +3/+1 until end of turn, and exile the top card of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play that card. So this is an incredibly powerful card for the Boros heroic decks and possibly a wider variety of strategies of aggressive decks. So this is a strong combat trick that replaces itself basically. The status boost is on rate, and also you get a card that is able to be played until the end of your next turn. So even if you tap out to use this, you're still getting that card. Well, thank you all for watching. I hope you leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you'll have an excellent day.